Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, is and true. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Woo! Fred, it's been too long. Last time you and I talked, you did a hello, nerds, and I felt like you were about to keel over. So I'm glad you made it, my friend.
Yes. Yes, I remember that. I was driving down the road doing about 75 miles an hour, and you get a hello, nerds, and almost passed out.
You had to do some cardio before that, man. Yeah, you got to work up to it.
Well, yeah, it's like all the oxygen like was out of my head, after that,
Oh, shit, we gotta get you. It's like those NFL players after a play. We gotta get you a little mask. Get you ready for the next rotation.
Yep.
Well, welcome back. I know when you and I scheduled this, we were like, oh yeah, let's catch up, talk about life after the campaign. Now, obviously, we had no idea when we scheduled this a couple months ago that we'd be in the middle of yet another kind of national, I don't know what you want to call it, but
Cluster F.
Yeah, tragedy, cluster F. Like it's and you're in the eye of the storm, aren't you, right now? Where are you calling us from?
So I am actually in Minnesota. I'm hanging out with Dale from Monks for Yang, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's actually running a deck appointment right now, and he's doing he's a guy that sells roofing and windows and decks and stuff like that. So I'm actually watching him put a deal together with this guy. He's going to do a deck. But yeah, I hung out with him last night, and then we said that we would go to the 3rd precinct, and oh my God, it was freaking nuts.
What was it like?
Dude, literally every building was knocked over, charred, spray painted, boarded up, building after building after building, block after block. It was like
a war zone.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was freaking insane. And then there was all these people that felt bad, that like they with brooms and shovels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, you're not gonna broom that away, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you need a bulldozer.
Yeah, you need an excavator and a roll-off. Like, there's millions of it's gonna take $1 billion. It's $1 billion rebuild. It's gonna take millions at least.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Did you run into any of the protesters, or did you have an opportunity to talk to anybody on the ground over there? Or
did talk to a bunch of people on the ground, but I didn't. Man, I talked to this one lady, right? She ran a nonprofit for like Native American youth, and she'd been in the nonprofit industry for like 4 months, raised the money, just got this new building like a year ago, right? And freaking disaster struck. Man, just yeah, it was a nightmare.
I'm guessing her insurance will cover this kind of thing, or how does that work?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't really talk to her about it, but man.
What's your take on all of this? Like, obviously there's been a lot of debate about
the
Yeah.
police don't know how to do their job correctly. Just as a general rule, I don't trust police officers, and I don't think that they're worthy of our trust. And they, as a general rule, we like to say things like, peace at all costs, and we like to feel good stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of the situation is, there's gonna, like, this is what happens when, like, you're self-centered. You don't care about anybody but yourself. You're only in it for yourself. You don't listen. This is the kind of stuff that happens when our politicians are stuck in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. There's way more kind of unprofessional and irresponsible law enforcement than is acceptable, given all of these things happening. I still struggle to think about what's the most appropriate response when you see that happen. And to me, like burning down local businesses, I don't know. I find it kind of counterproductive. I understand the anger and the frustration, but what's the end game? Like what is the goal of that?
What is productive though? Because it's obvious what has been happening is not productive. I can tell you that much. Like, let's just look at everything from the Boston Tea Party to, assassination of freaking MLK and Malcolm X to, like, just, I mean, nothing or no real change. I mean, just look at history, man. No real change just comes, like, through, like, peaceful suggestions. It just doesn't, man. I'm sorry. I mean, you look at history, like, change hurts. It's painful. And that's like the least of what, your normal law abiding citizen wants to hear. They don't want to hear that, like, change only comes through pain and suffering. But it's the truth.
Yeah, I guess my view is like I'm not saying it should entirely be like, oh, hey, let's do a change.org petition and that'll solve all our problems. I understand that we need to, as a country, sometimes confront these challenges in a much more direct and in a way that can't be ignored. So I get that. I would just argue, like, if I were on the ground in Minnesota and pissed off about this and I wanted to really make a statement, I could see myself, forming a human chain around the police department, or occupying and blocking traffic, or any number of things. I would certainly also encourage everyone to vote in November. But, like, you look at the
Biden is not going to cure nothing. Like, we need, honestly, I wish I was the president right now.
What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I would vote myself out of office. I would, if there was some way to, like, an executive order to put Andrew into office and to vote myself out, right? Or something like that. Like, oh my God. Biden is not going to do anything. Biden is not going to solve anything. And if you really watch these interviews with Andrew, you can sense and try. Like, Andrew, I love Andrew. And one of the things that I love about Andrew is he's a really easy read. You know what I mean? you could tell he knows that like everybody's trying to hold their nose and choke down Biden, and Andrew knows that Biden is not going to do anything, and it's almost like he goes out there and tries not to puke on, and go home, and he goes home and probably takes a shower. Now I know I'm speaking for him and I shouldn't do that, but like I don't know, like this must be really painful for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between, well, whether Biden would be the answer to all our problems, versus whether, I know you're less critical of Trump than I am, but I do feel like let's go back in time. If quote unquote worst case scenario, we had Hillary in office, I'm pretty sure that the Department of Justice would be aggressively investigating cases of police brutality more than they are today. And I think they aren't today because the Trump White House really is talking about, if there's looting, then there's going to be shooting. Let's just send in the National Guard and squash this shit. So I do feel like the presidency matters and that you don't need the savior in the White House to still make progress.
Anything other than a complete overhaul and an address of the fourth industrial revolution is a freaking Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. It's a kick the can down the road another 4 or 8 years. Doesn't matter, Tom.
Okay, let's take that analogy. I'll play devil's advocate with you.
It's like giving a freaking it's like giving a half a sandwich to a starving guy. You know what I mean?
Okay, but then it's also like the starving guy getting pissed and saying, well, then I'm going to cut off my mouth. Like, I don't know how burning down your own neighborhood helps.
I'm not claiming that it does help, right? There's no claim that it does help, right? But what we're doing prior to that wasn't working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
So it at very least it sends a message that what we're doing isn't working. And like you read Andrew's book and you see he talks very specifically about a societal breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is just the beginning. This is nothing.
What if I said, the people had an opportunity to learn more about Andrew and to put him into the White House, and in their wisdom, they decided that he wasn't the guy. And so democracy in action, like we can't force a leader on the rest of the country. The country needs to be ready and want him.
Yeah, then we deserve to have our buildings. I guess we deserve to have our, this is what we get for voting, not being informed and voting. Like, this is what we deserve.
Yeah.
Like we deserve all the rubble you see is because we're not informed.
Yeah, I've heard this narrative that, hey, part of the rationale for the looting is a sense of hopelessness and a sense of frustration that there's no upside, and and that's partly, I think we would argue, because of the changing economy. But what I don't understand is then why didn't some of those folks who are pissed off now, why weren't they supporting Andrew? Because he was the only one proposing anything that would do anything for some of these most kind of economically depressed parts of the country.
Well, economically depressed people, by and large, don't vote at a high rate.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it real. If you're like a newer candidate like Andrew and you're just playing the math, I understand why there's certain parts of Iowa that they were more, that they did the math, and there are like certain parts of Iowa they paid more attention to than others. Whereas Pete Buttigieg, or Biden or bigger camps, the Bernie camp can go to all parts of Iowa. You know what I mean? Or they can go to all parts of, like when you're a new guy, a new person, um, obviously you have to do the math and say, okay, where am I going to get my best, bang for my buck?
Mm-hmm.
If you look, poor people, regardless of race, poor people vote at a low rate,
Yeah.
regardless of race, age, um, occupation. It's just the facts.
What percent of those looters do you think voted in 16? I think very small percentage.
Well, poor people who make $26,000 or less vote at a 30% rate or lower.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say that would be less than 30% rate.
Yeah. And my point is, like, if you're pissed and you're basically committing acts of violence and destruction of other people's private property, and you didn't even bother to vote, like, that pisses me off a little bit. It's like, wait a minute. For this system to work, we all have to participate. We all have to do our homework. And if you're pissed about the way the situation is, but you don't even participate, how does that work?
It works because you think that, Andrew spoke on this. He's like, I understand why people are disaffected, and that's why my message really rings to disaffected people. Like there's a sense of hopelessness where you're like, it doesn't matter who runs for president, nobody's going to solve our issues.
Mm. And let me ask you this: how much of this do you think is a statement of organized public disobedience, civil disobedience, or just opportunistic theft and just being kind of reckless? Or do you think it's mostly like people saying no, giving a finger to the establishment, like this is a political symbol, a political act?
It's like a third of all of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's got its tentacles far and wide. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, Fred,
I'll be honest with you. I have zero respect. I always have had zero respect for law enforcement. Always. But also, I know I've been to jail before, and so no officer of the law is going to come up to me. I'm gonna if an officer approaches me, I'm gonna say, am I being detained?
Mm-hmm.
Are you charging me with something? Am I free to go? What's the charge? Oh, you want to? Okay, then let's just go to jail. I'll be out. I'll bond out before. I got money. I got a lawyer on a retainer. I'm not worried about you. So let's just go to jail. Like, the one thing that I'm not gonna do is that one thing that I refuse to do is to let an officer of the law get his rocks off, get his kicks off of like a lot of the problem that there needs to be a lot of education on both sides. There needs to be a lot of education. Officers always need to be thinking about, like, what's the charge? Where is the end goal of me talking to anybody, for one, and then what's the charge? Okay, and how can I safely either safely apprehend this person or write a ticket and let the person go or whatever, right? And then the public always need to be thinking about, like, what are their rights, and to not be scared of police officers, because that is like an aphrodisiac to them.
Yeah.
Not all cops are bad, But the fact that we have to qualify when we start saying the raunchy stuff that cops do, the fact that somebody has to come into the conversation and say, "Oh, not all cops are bad," right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a serious issue.
Do you have any sympathy for the cops who?
No.
Well, hold on, Fred. Who would argue, "Hey, I put my life on the line every day. I put on that badge, and it's intense and it's stressful, and because of that, like you have to make these split-second decisions."
Yeah, I put my life on the line. I work in the seventh most dangerous industry in the United States. Like, cry me a river, dude. Cry me a river. Like, if you don't like your job, quit. Cry me a river. I see. There's too many Netflix specials. Dude, I was in prison 25 years ago when the Missouri Department of Corrections had a lawsuit against them because they did it for 3.5 years. They wagered on gang members and had UFC style fights where they took rival gang members out of their cages, so to speak, and put them in the same room, knowing that these two people are enemies, and would watch them fight and gamble on it.
Yeah, that's inexcusable for sure.
I went to sleep. I went to sleep knowing that 30 cities in America were burning last night, and woke up to picture after picture and video after video of cops abusing their power and just like, I can't even. And then there's special after special of innocent people in jail, and you know that this person is in jail wrongly. Oh, the DNA popped for somebody else. Oh, well, maybe he didn't rape her, but he definitely killed her. Okay. All right.
Now, Fred, let me ask you something. You were live streaming from Minnesota. Should we take a little look at some of the stuff that you saw?
You can do that. Like, I would probably go like 15 minutes in.
All right.
Because
you talk me through it.
The first 15 minutes is me. Oh man, it was heartbreaking.
All right. So you want me to jump to around minute 15?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Like here?
Yeah.
Okay. Where is this? Is this a CVS or what is that?
This is the Target that was.
Yeah. Could you grab 2 of them, please, for this woman right here? Grab a bag, step in, find goods that could still be beneficial to others, drop them off, call the organization. Let them know we're down here. Let them know that this is for them. This is for the people. Okay. There's bags there that are full of if you need bags.
So what's going on?
So basically what's happening here is they're going to, in about 30 or 45 minutes, they're going to board this place up. And there's so much food and so much stuff that's still in there that, everything in there has got, it's not going to be salvaged. They're going to start all over at this place, I guess. So there are people in there that are like, go in, if you can find anything, bring it out, and, give it to the churches, give it to the different organizations. You know what I mean?
Got it. And is this guy, like, he works for a nonprofit, or does he work for the
I don't
store,
know. He's just like a random guy.
Huh.
You know, and then there was another place where like this black lady was like talking about like we're all God's children, and like she was screaming at the top of her lungs at another thing, and I just felt terrible, and I went up and gave her a hug. Oh, it was terrible.
What's the vibe like? Is it just sort of like a
Oh my God.
post-war kind of vibe? Feels.
Yeah. You'll see over in the inside of this place, and you'll also see if you skip forward a little bit, right? I actually go in there just to kind of look, right? Oh, it's terrible.
So, like, all the power's off, so all the refrigerators are not working and everything. Basically, this place is pretty much done. Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, look at this, man. I mean, total insanity everywhere.
So what happened the prior evening? Like a whole crap load of people just busted in here and took everything, or?
Yeah, I think it was 2 nights ago, maybe.
Jesus.
Dude, I'm telling you, this area of Minneapolis is not fit for man nor beast.
And then looks like, what's this here? Whoa.
This was the outside, right, of them just pulling a bunch of stuff out.
Jesus.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's intense.
Oh, no. See where that guy was explaining something? That young guy?
Where I was scrubbing? Like, oh, yeah, this guy with the blonde hair?
Right there. Yeah, that guy.
Let's see if I can get to him.
Okay, that's the police. That's the police station. They actually took the Minneapolis police station.
They got trapped inside when the
Was that the apartments upstairs?
No.
Jesus.
He was inside of it?
Yeah. When the roof collapsed.
So he died? He's still in there?
Oh, he's still in there. There's 2 steel beams.
Hold on. This guy is going
to... He's not alive, is he? Oh, no.
No.
There's no way.
He's still in there. They haven't gotten him out yet.
Yeah. The guy in the gray shirt there by the caution tape, right there with the sun shining down on him, there's 2 steel beams there. I had an axe. I was standing right here when the roof collapsed. And all I heard was, we still got people inside. So I rush over. I thought the 2 steel beams were 2x4s. It was dark.
Yeah.
I thought they were just charred from fire. Somebody sitting there hacking away.
At a steel beam.
There's a good half-inch cut straight into one side. You should go check it out. My name's Brandon, by the way.
My name's Fred, man.
I'm from Florida, but I live here now.
Yeah.
For 1.5 years.
Yeah, this is my buddy. He lives here. His name's Dale.
I'm from here.
Yeah, I'm a trucker. Man.
Okay.
Me and another person, we have a super PAC called Truckers for Yang.
See the Andrew Yang truck?
Yeah.
That's Fred's.
Yeah.
That's Fred's truck.
Yeah.
Really?
He's the driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like Andrew Yang, so
That's crazy, man.
Well, I was talking to that guy, right? I'm talking to this guy, right? And he was like, yeah, I'm going to check this guy out. I was like, he has a book where he describes how, like, the societal breakdown will happen when people feel like there's no hope. And I really like this guy because, and I was hoping that, like, when I'm reading this book, I got this feeling of how screwed we are. And that was terrible. I went on to tell him, I'm a conservative, more of a conservative voice. But I listened to this guy and I was like, yeah, conservative or left or right. Like, I just got to support this guy. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to check this guy out. Right. He's like, yeah, I'm going to check this guy out. I like him. And then there was this part where this lady was like, she was like yelling at the top of her lungs about like how She was yelling at the top. Do you remember that? Where the lady was yelling at the... No thanks. No thanks. Do you remember that, Dale, where the lady was yelling at the top of her lungs? Yep. And she was just talking about like how we're all God's children. And I think that's her right there.
You want to watch a little bit?
Yeah.
All right.
You can't hear her, huh?
No, we can hear.
I went up to her. I was at that point, I'm standing next to her, right? Because she was like trying to get somebody to come up, like, and I gave her a hug. And she was just like totally heartbroken and saying how like we're all God's children and just different nationalities. Yeah, she was. I mean, I can't imagine. This is like I couldn't imagine. I talked to other people too. I talked to this one lady with a dog, and she was like, "Yeah, I live 3 blocks over that way," and like I was scared that somebody was gonna come in my house, and she had this dog, and I was petting her dog, and then all the kids came up and was petting the dog. It's sad, and I hope we listen to people. Like, I grew up in an all-black neighborhood from about 13 till I went to prison at 19. And I heard the stuff that Black Americans say on their porches about like, hey, don't you mess with that man over there, knowing that like someone else has power over you and can do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. And like listening to Black mothers tell their children, hey, like keep your head down. It must be really just demasculating for the young men too. I mean, when you think about it, how you like this whole idea where like you're trying to like go unnoticed. You know what I mean?
I do intellectually. I've been very fortunate to grow up always feeling like, if I work hard and play by the rules, I can move up in the world. I've never had to feel like, oh, the entire game is kind of rigged against me, or certainly I've never felt like I would be at risk of bodily harm from law enforcement.
Just something as small as like I was talking to Dale the other day. Last night we were burning a fire in his backyard. We were talking about like it. We're talking about 2024. We're talking about is America ready for an Asian president in 2024? I says, I think like your name's Tom, his name is Andrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is big. Just something this small is really, really big. If his name was like Jing Shi, right? Might be different.
But then Barack Obama. See?
Yeah, Barack Obama is.
And that was during the time of Osama.
Yeah.
The two rhyme. And I go, I didn't think he would win because his name rhymed with Osama.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Said, but you know what? That didn't affect it.
It didn't. It didn't.
I thought it
was Barack was so smooth. He was so smooth. Like he was
the Michael Jordan of politics, man. They don't
Yeah,
make them.
he was just really good at making a point and
Yeah.
like not being like, it's like one of those guys who can like be a little bit of a prick if he needs to, but smile at the same time, right?
I also think it's different for Asian American politicians in that I think Asian Americans still have more road to travel to be considered truly Americans, whereas I think African Americans don't have this kind of like, oh, is he really American? I mean, certainly Barack had some of that criticism given his time overseas, but
Yeah, and his name, you know.
yeah. But I agree with you. If Andrew tried to run as whatever Jingji Yang, forget about it, man. Forget about it.
Yeah,
Would
I
not
mean,
happen.
just something that small, right? And man, it's
I mean, let me ask you this. Like, I'm pretty sure if you took Andrew's views and his kind of proposals and his thinking and his approach, and you put him inside of like Cory Booker's body, I think Cory Booker would be the nominee by now.
dude, I would just have this conversation with I had this conversation with Sola last night.
Oh, about what?
I said Cory Booker has the look, like the size, the stature, like he has it all, right? And he's a good speaker. I was like, I think one of the dangers that could crop up in 2024 is like if I was Cory Booker or Tim Ryan, right? We were like, these are politicians that have, they have a base already a little bit. You know what I mean? Obviously, Cory doesn't have, but I was I was like, Cory understands the neighborhoods that are not socioeconomic prominence. You know what I mean? Like he has a good understanding of that, right?
Yeah, Newark is not exactly the Upper West Side.
Yeah, and same with like Ryan's from Ohio, which is rough. You know what I mean? And I could literally see somebody try to take Andrew's platform and run with it, right? Which I would say, like, why would I vote for you when I could vote for Andrew? Do you know what I mean? I will say something really, really big about what I'm very impressed with, right? Andrew lately, right? Like, he's always been awkward. He's always been awkward talking about, things of race, right? And like, there's a few things where he's a little awkward, like he went to, I don't know, the poverty something, and, like and I was, in the beginning, I was like worried, like, is he going to understand what it's really, really like for poor people and people of color, right? Because, he grew up in white society. He's got a master's degree. He went to all the good schools. He's a nerd. Like, is he really going to get it? And I must say, I'm really, really impressed. Like, I was talking to Erica and Solo about this, like, reaching out. Why, it's like reaching out to the Melanated Council of Yang. Literally learning and like doing the research about like what's it like and what are the real issues that people are talking about right now, and having like bending an ear, and then also like having mercy upon people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
This last week and a half, I've been really impressed. I've been critical of Andrew sometimes, you know, just because I put so much in,
Yeah,
like
sure.
I'm so invested. And every time I'm critical on something, right? Uh, like the Biden statements, right? He was like, "Oh, it'll blow over," or whatever he said. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Some people didn't like that, and I let them know. I was like, "Dude, some people didn't like that. You know that
Yeah.
that Biden's statements and you saying it'll blow over." And he really took that to heart. Not a lot of times because I'll talk to him. I don't talk to him on the phone, but I'll text him, and he's so busy he doesn't get back with me. You
Hmm.
know, which I don't hold that against him. You know what I mean? Uh, and but I was like, hey, like I think sometimes, or I think Biden's comments really pissed people off, and he said thanks, and then throughout that whole week, this was before the George Floyd thing happened, and
Hmm.
then after it happened, you could tell he was like really trying to dig into the black community and really trying to dig into why people were so upset by Biden's comments. And then, the George Floyd thing happened, and you could tell he's really trying to dig in. And I'm impressed by that, honestly, uh, because it doesn't affect, like, this doesn't affect me. This doesn't affect him, in
Hmm.
terms of like his neighborhood up where he's in New Paltz or in Manhattan, right? It's not going to affect. Like I live in a great neighborhood in Maricopa, Arizona. It doesn't affect me, right? Uh, until I'm able to internalize that, like anything that affects anybody affects us all. Should that we're interconnected.
Yeah, I think Andrew has this combination of I think he's intellectually curious. He's also humble and empathetic. And when you have all three, you end up like doing stuff like riding around in a truck with Fred the Felon, as well as trying to get to know kind of other groups. And sadly, you don't see that kind of intellectual curiosity, humility, and empathy from a lot of our political leaders. But on the other hand, when I think about 2024, that is definitely not going to be an easy road for Yang. I mean, assuming Biden
It's not
wins.
gonna be. It's not gonna be a slam dunk, right? It's not gonna be a slam dunk, but uh, I think we're gonna have a little bit more. We're gonna have a little bit more political capital for one.
Oh yeah, we'll do way better than 2020.
Yeah, and then also like I was really pissed off, to be honest with you, and critical of Yang for like not going upside people's heads at the debates. And I was wrong. I was just totally wrong because he didn't go upside everybody's head, right? And he just stuck to the issues and was just like so focused on the issues. He was able to get in with all these different initiatives with like the We Are All Americans or the the giving of $250 or $500, $1,000 to different people. He was able to garner and gain support from other candidates because he didn't burn the bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can tell you right now that Pete is not going to call up the Andy camp and say, "Hey, there's an initiative on South Bend or gay rights or go ahead and do that." It's not going to happen. Probably the same with Warren and Bernie. So
I think there is a fine
because he didn't
line.
do that.
Fred, I think there is a fine line between being collaborative, building relationships with the other kind of party leaders, and still like having a my ball mentality. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with you. Like, I think he was right not to be a total jerk or an a-hole. I don't know. I think that there were, as we proceeded with these debates, if he didn't draw sharp enough contrasts, then it didn't help. And probably, I think we could have finished higher than sixth in Iowa, as an example. Had we, I mean, maybe there's some middle ground there.
Coronavirus happened 3 months too late.
Yeah.
I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is frustrating. Like yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine who was a big Pete supporter. And she was like, your guy, Andrew Yang, actually, he's starting to make more sense to me now. And I'm like, yeah, well, fucking, it's too late, dude. It's too late. And how's your mayor from South Bend doing?
Yeah, well, my comeback to that would be like, what changed between now and then? Like, what makes sense now that didn't make sense before?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe now we see that we can spend $3 trillion and we don't really care how to pay for it. And it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, well, the thing, I'm really starting to understand this trickle-up economy, right? Because I was talking to this one guy, Alex Hallett, right? He's talking about, like, sometimes we create jobs, right? We create jobs just so we can create money. Like, literally, some. I mean, I'm sure that this happens to everybody, where like you have a 40-hour-a-week job, and on the weeks where there's only like 25 hours worth of real work, you're like twiddling your thumbs and being like, "Oh, got to get my hours in," right? And just sitting at your desk, or waiting. You're a janitor waiting for somebody to spill something, or whatever, right? And there's a lot of times where the jobs that we have are so unnecessary, just because, and it's just to create revenue that can go into the market, right? And then if we just created the revenue and put it into the market, it would flow up instead of down. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It does. It does. I mean, certainly, I think the federal jobs guarantee approach is like the opposite, where it's like, well, the government's going to give you a job and it's going to give you a wage versus just starting with them. Actually, I find that what I love about the dividend is that it's a very market focused approach. It's a very kind of libertarian bend to it, which I appreciate. But I find it shocking that when Yang was running on a program that would cost $2 trillion or 2.4 the first year, everybody was like, "There's no way we could pay for it. Like, the whole country will, go bankrupt and blah blah blah." And then we just like spent $3 trillion on stimulus one, the CARE program or CARES Act, and it's all gone. Like, and if you asked everyone, like, "Hey, which would you rather have had, this freaking CARES Act, which I blame on both Trump and Pelosi, or every adult gets $1,000 a month for the next 12 months?" That's a no-brainer. Like, where's that money now? Most people haven't seen it, and everybody that got a check, it's like, oh, I got the check, a check, and then it's done. So it is a little frustrating, but we are now here, and we are faced with a choice in November, 22 weeks away. Fred, I got to ask you, 22 weeks from now, what are you going to do, brother?
This is oh, hey.
What's up? Monks for Yang.
This is
whole friend was talking.
This is Dale.
I watch your stuff all the time.
Oh, thanks, Dale.
He's big in the monk.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dale's big in the monk community. They have a huge monk community here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And one of the good things about the monk community is if anybody runs on anything, they just like get them in.
Yeah, we'll raise like the money like this.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, it's good to see you, Dale. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, the Hmong community is actually, I would say, among the most politically engaged. Wouldn't you say they're more politically engaged?
Yeah, we got more people running for office than I think.
Any probably
like Vietnamese or Cambodia. You know, I mean, we got people, city council, senators.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're big. We're big on.
So you were going to ask me probably about Biden, right?
Yeah, 22 weeks from now, man. You're going to go behind a little curtain and pull a lever.
Actually, no, I'm not. Actually, me and my lady have already talked about this. She said, she's basically holding my vote hostage because I told her, I said, I'm probably not going to vote, right? I don't know if I can choke down Biden. Like, I'm still like, I can't get all the stuff that he said. Like, what is it? Poor kids are just as smart as white kids, right? Or, like you ain't black, or if you got to figure out between me or the best of it all is, oh, the thing, it's like,
Fred, if you wrote a list of all the crazy shit that Joe said, and I put a list of all the crazy shit that Donald J. Trump said, I bet my list would be way longer. Shithole countries, rapists, murderers.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. He said those things, like Donald Trump said those things on purpose. He wasn't gaffing, right? Like, there wasn't a mental disconnect where he just got a serious case of Tourette's, right? I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump. I can tell you that much. But my lady is like, I'm just going to send your vote in for you.
Good. And where's she going to put, what is she going to put you down
my lady's, she's a liberal.
Oh, good for her.
And she's crazy because she's a gun-toting, right, hard-working, like, I would say she's registered as an independent, right? She's independent, but she's going to vote for Biden.
So I find it interesting that you are surprised that a liberal could be gun-toting and hardworking. Is your view that most liberals?
No, I'm not surprised that a liberal could be hardworking, right? But I'm surprised that I don't know, the liberal community is not as pro-gun as I'd like. You know what I mean? Like me, I think we should have. Yeah, I like. I'm into AK-47s and freaking AR-15s and P90s and M4s. Like, yeah, I think we should have all that. And I could care less about what.
And you don't mind you don't mind that the AR-15s jam all the time.
Well, that's why I like AKs. I like AKs myself. A lot of people they tout the AR-15 platform, and I think the AK platform. If you get like Croatian or Israeli, AK platform, it's way better than any of the Russian stuff.
Karen Smith had a good point when you were talking about Biden. He has gaffes. He has like sort of these lapses, let's say, where let's just say
connected to his eyes too.
The synapses don't fire as reliably.
You notice when he's about to gaff, his eyes like he does this like eye twitch.
All right, fine. Let's just stipulate that he's not going to win any Rhodes Scholar competition. But I think Karen's point, and you're saying, but Trump, he's actually doing it. He's not accidentally saying that shit. He's being deliberate about it. Like, is that necessarily better that you have someone that deliberately wants to say divisive?
Trump is an asshole. I don't know if I could say that on your channel. I'm sorry, but
that's good. We're fine.
Like Trump's just, he's a prick, right? So he's just gonna say whatever he's saying. What sometimes people are thinking, right? There's certain things that he says that obviously people are not thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
He started off his first speech with, Mexicans are drug dealers and rapists, and I'm sure there's a few one-offs,
Right. Yeah. I mean, what about I feel like his kind of erratic positions on China are really kind of not confidence inspiring.
It's funny. Remember, it's funny. Right? It's funny you mentioned that because when I had Andrew in my truck, I told Andrew, I was like, I'm sure you looked up you looked in the mirror and noticed your Asian, right? He was like, thanks. Right? And I was like, so I just want to let you know, when you take office, it doesn't matter what you do. You could come back from China with a 30% tariff and an agreement from you're going to be a traitor from the right, right? Yeah. The right is going to paint you as a traitor to America when you go to deal with China, right? So just so you know, the right is never the really, really hard right people. They're never going to give you credit. It doesn't matter what deal you come back with from China, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
So just prepare yourself for that. And he was like, he basically told me, he was like, I get along very well in China, and I'm kind of sort of I have kind of a cult following, and I feel like if anybody can pull off a monster deal, it'll be me. Right? But yeah, Trump. Yeah, Trump is an idiot.
Right.
He's a total idiot. And he never lets anybody else on his team get any glory.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, let's switch gears for a second, Fred. What's the plans for Truckers for Yang? What are you guys up to? Are you gonna put it in hibernation for a little while and reactivate in 2022 or what?
Oh, we're definitely reactivating in 2022, but until then, we have certain initiatives that we're working on, right? So we were getting PPE to Detroit, and hard to find items like toilet paper to Detroit. We're getting PPE and sanitizers to Detroit, and then we were working on getting masks to the people of South Carolina. And we're actually going to do a couple endorsements. endorsing Blair from
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yeah. One of the women that worked closely with us on certain projects is actually working with her on her, like as a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're definitely gonna, if there's anybody out there that needs an endorsement, we'll look at that as well. I was working with some of the truckers on maybe coming up with a video for the truckers and a hashtag, and maybe getting Andrew involved with that. However, some of the issues that that they were focusing on in DC, the truckers rally,
Mm-hmm.
are I wouldn't say all the way solved, but it ebbs and flows. Pricing. Yeah, we can go to Hmong Village. All right, cool. So yeah, we're gonna be working on some stuff.
Are the wraps staying on the trucks, or do they
Yeah,
have?
yeah. I still have the Truckers for Yang wrap.
That's great. Do you have people ever?
I got my truck actually in Dale's freaking front yard, like in his driveway, right? Yeah.
Do you ever get people come up to you?
Going, what the heck?
Yeah.
You just need to. Does it say 2020 anywhere, or you don't even need to update it?
No. I took the 2020 off, and I put truckersforyang.com over all the 2020s everywhere.
I got you. Yeah.
Right. So it's just truckersforyang.com. Doesn't say 2020. There are some little baby Yang 2020s on the trucks, right? But they're gray, and you really can't. They're gray on the white, and you really can't see. You can't see them from far away. I don't know if we're going to be wrapping trucks in 2022. I feel like we may take more of a organizing position. It just depends on how we come out. If we really wanted to, the whole goal was to boost name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Get Andrew's name out there.
Mm-hmm.
We may not have that issue. We may not have that problem in 2022.
Yeah, I don't think you will.
Yeah. What do you think will be our bigger problem then, if it's not name recognition?
Our bigger problem is older voters, like getting them to understand, and then like tackling. We need to go at workism.
I got a question.
Yeah. What's up, Dale?
Of Bernie Bros, do you think will come over to Andrew in 2024?
What percent of Bernie Bros will come over?
Yeah. What percentage of the Bernie Bros will be coming over to us in 2024?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, in some ways, you would think. I was talking to Steve Marchand, and he was taking the position that most of the growth that they saw in New Hampshire for Yang was from people peeling off of Bernie. So that's encouraging.
Yeah.
I would say that from a policy point of view, Fred, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but from a policy point of view, while they both see the same problems, their approach to solving them are very different. So, that's why I'm not sure there might be a huge crossover.
Bernie's solution to everything is wholesale hand over everything to the government and stack bureaucracy on top of more bureaucracy. It's like, oh, well, we don't trust the government, and the government ain't squat, and they're not working for us, but let's hand over the job economy to them. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
the government screwed our guy out of, the government screwed our guy off of boarded up. Yeah, it's boarded up. The government screwed our guy out of the 2016 nomination, but we want the government in charge of all of our health care. Not even have a a public option.
Now,
It doesn't make sense.
I would say there's one line of argument that could be sort of more optimistic about us getting more of the Bernie support in 2024. And that would be that his supporters are not necessarily backing him and fired up about him because of his prescribed solutions, but more that he's got this sense of outrage that the current system is failing us. And then maybe there we could kind of segue into Yang.
Yeah, I know. Like sometimes I feel like if Yang would have just kept up with the F-bombs, right? Like F the system, like you're
the
F.
Older people don't like that.
I'm here to un-F you.
The older people.
I know. Yeah, that's the kicker.
The old white people.
That it really is the kicker. And it really is, honestly. It's really the kicker. Like older people like your Jerry Nadler types.
I mean, I get it. Like it's not considered traditionally presidential to use that kind of language. Although, I mean, the standards of what is presidential have really been thrown out the door for the last few years. Let's get to our audience question, Fred. Tamar saying, "Hey, I'm just an average person driving around with my Yang stickers. What things can Tamar do to be an ambassador for Yang 2024? Like, what can the Yang gang do out there individually to, keep this movement going and go for the gusto next time around?" What do you think?
Share a video of Andrew saying or doing something, and then just go up and tell people, ask people what their issues are for 2024, and then figure out where Andrew's solutions fit in that problem. So that's the thing. It's we need to grow the Yang gang, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I call into people like Tim Black show, right? Or I talk to Bernie bros, right? I don't avoid them, right? I just want to give them a hug and tell them that there's another way, or Trump supporters, Andrew doesn't demonize Trump supporters. He understands the sentiment behind, we're so screwed that everyday Americans were willing to, tens of millions of Americans, were willing to roll the dice on the narcissistic television reality star. So just have mercy on people, even the cops, It's really hard for me to do.
I know that was a big one for you, Fred. You're saying that liberals sometimes can work hard, and you might even show some mercy to the cops.
Yeah.
Amen, brother. I would just build on that and say to Tamar, the 2024 campaign, in my eyes, started the moment we suspended the 2020 campaign.
Yeah.
And so, that's number one. Let's not wait till 2023. The other thing is, I think to the extent when you talk to other people about Yang, if we can also help people understand not only the power of basic income, but all of the other great ideas that Yang had, like the democracy dollars and the scorecard. I mean, I just did a video that's going live next week about his healthcare proposals, and which was a really kind of nuanced and multifaceted kind of solution that now you look at it and you're like, yeah, this guy had a long kind of a whole strategy for how to make things better. And so, yeah, I would be my advice. Elizabeth Norris is saying that she's she's a member of this channel, and she also shares content, donates, and talks everybody's ear off. And I think like that's how it works, one person at a time.
Yeah, you really have to, like when I was talking to that guy, that young guy that was explaining that there was somebody
Brandon.
that was in the building when it went down, and he was trying to get that person out or find the person, that's in there, even though that person is deceased. We were talking about, like what, I wanted to show the Yang Gang like how terrible. And I was talking about Andrew, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna check this guy out. I like this idea that you're talking about. The idea that people do things out of desperation sometimes. And some of that desperation could be alleviated by just giving people money. One thing I just wanted to throw out there, right? The reason I said, my lady is
hardworking.
My lady's liberal but very hardworking. Is like she works at an internet place, right? It's similar to GoDaddy, right? They own like Fat Cow, iPage, Domain.com, and she works for Bluehost. And like we'll go on a full-fledged vacation, like we've been on a cruise, we've done this thing, we've done that thing, we'll go to Colorado, we go to Hawaii, and like people at her company are like, how the heck do you go on these awesome vacations? And she's like, yeah, you guys just take days off. Like you guys just randomly call in. I'm like the only person that never misses work. And like, she works at this, technology company, and the culture there at this technology company is, show up late, leave early to make up for it. You know what I mean? Like she's like the only person that's like doesn't have any points. She's like my whole team, like 30 people, right? Are like, and she's like, but I work around people that are very, very liberal, right? And play video games till 2, 3 in the morning. And, like they're young too. And my lady's not a young lady, So I just wanted to clean that up,
Right on. No, we got
why
you.
I say that?
We got you. She sounds like a super hard worker, and good for her.
Yeah. I mean, it's all good.
Hey, Erica has a question. Oh, by the way, thank you, Vaughn, for the super chat. Vaughn was saying that people are looking for another way, and we are the other way. And then Erica was asking you, do you regret voting for the Donald?
Actually, I didn't vote for anyone. I never have.
Or do you regret supporting the Donald?
Yeah. What actually got me to I was really into Donald Trump for like the first year, because he was so he's sticking a middle finger up to everyone and everything, including like mainstream media, freaking the RNC, the DNC, just was like totally angry at everything. And I loved the anger and the hatred, to be quite honest with you, that he showed toward the media, right? And quite honest with you, I was really impressed with his speech that he gave when he won, because I thought his speech was just going to be filled with FUs and F Hillary, and I'm about to put her in, I can't wait till I take office, I'm going to put her in prison. And he was actually very, he's like, I'm going to be the president for everybody. And it's time.
They closed it down.
Oh, they closed
Yeah.
language.
So, are you talking about his inaugural speech?
His inaugural speech, yeah.
Ah, that's interesting. Well, that's one of those interesting cases where two people can listen to a speech and come to different conclusions. I thought it was like very dark and kind of dystopian, and it wasn't this like Reagan like sense of optimism, but you thought it was pretty positive at the time.
Well, my expectations were very low too. I thought for sure he was going to be like, "Yep, I'm putting her in prison," or
right.
I told you, MFers, I was going to right. Yeah. I'm a winner, and I'm a chicken dinner, and this winner chicken dinner. Like I thought he was just going to talk mad smack, right?
Right.
And he really didn't talk nearly as much. It's Donald Trump, so I thought,
Yeah.
And then I was excited for like 6 months or a year, and then when I ran into Andrew, and I listened to him, I was still like, okay, this guy's a freaking communist whack job, freaking. He wants to redistribute all the wealth, and he's just going to give, lazy people a bunch of money. This guy's an idiot, right? That was my initial thought.
Yeah.
And then when I listened to his book on Amazon, I was like, oh my God, we're so screwed. Basically, I saw what I just saw today in the book. Like I saw it in my mind.
Yeah.
I saw the burning buildings.
Yeah.
I saw like an America that is coming to be nothing. And I saw the 30%, 40% of jobs that are going to be gone in the next 15 years. And I saw no solution other than what Andrew was saying. Like there's no solution. There's not enough jobs for everyone.
What do you think Trump's, if we had to sort of try and be positive about Trump for a minute, like what do you think he would do to help those folks that are losing their jobs? I think he would probably argue he's going to negotiate more equitable trading deals with China and other countries. We'd probably pull out of NATO.
I don't know what. Honestly, I have no idea what he's going to do.
No.
I honestly, the problem is so complex that there's no solution to it.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me, it kind of rubs me the wrong way when we keep kind of harping on these international trade deals. Like for one, I'm all for fair trade. And if another country is kind of not playing by the rules, then that's not cool. And we need to act swiftly. But if let's say, we put some more tariffs on China and suddenly like these big screen TVs, are now a few $100 more. Like, I don't know that suddenly like RCA and Zenith are going to like reappear and GE is going to make TVs again in like Ohio. Right. Like, I mean, that's just the reality of low labor costs. You just can't, it's not unfair trade. They just have like way lower labor costs. That's the real. Right?
Yeah, that's reality. I mean, cost of living. And then, you have people in other countries, the desperation is at an all-time high, so you can pay people dirt. And
did you see this Netflix special, American Factory? Did you see that thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Like those dudes are working 7 days a week and they don't go home. Like they only go see their kids a few times a year. Like I don't want to compete with that. This is fucking, that's like, there's no way.
Well, in 2024, one of the things that we've got to do is we've got to tackle workism. We've got to tackle this notion that like, and I have a couple theories. First of all, I think a lot of people they're gonna get into minimalism, and some people are actually gonna get back into hunter-gatherer, right? So that's a hot take I have. Another hot take is I think the black community. I said this months and months ago, and I've had it confirmed by a few black people that are in the Melanated Council of Yang. I think the black community, not all the black community, but some of the black community has fallen into the trap that a black person with a gun is a target, right? And so, hey, we shouldn't take part in the Second Amendment. I think black people are going to start taking part in the Second Amendment at a high rate, right? And I think black people are going to also, black Americans are going to pick up and move.
Where?
I think that's for them to decide. I'm not here to tell anybody other than myself what to do. But I think black Americans are going to say, I think there are other countries in the world, whether the UK, Australia, different parts of Africa, whatever, right? There are other countries in the world where my talents are going to be more appreciated than, and I will be more, better respected in other places. And this is just something that I think that could potentially happen. I mean, you've had people do it before, oppressed people like Jewish people migrated all over because of certain issues that they had to deal with in different parts of Europe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the things that black Americans are dealing with now are just like, they're not one-offs. Like, people keep saying, oh, well, this is just isolated incidents don't happen every week in every major city in the United States. Like, that's isolated incidents happen once every 3 years in like one place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
those are a few of my hot takes that I think are going to happen.
I love it. I love it. It's definitely thought-provoking, and I agree with you that at some point, if anybody is in a situation where they feel like they can get a better deal elsewhere, then that's how the world works. You gotta think about your alternatives, especially. I mean, I guess if this kind of systemic injustice kind of persists, and then it becomes a point of like safety. I mean, I've seen enough interviews where you see these mothers talking about like, hey, I'm worried about my kid who's like a 15-year-old boy because I don't know what the police are going to do to him if they, try and arrest him, irrespective of whether he did anything wrong. And yeah, I mean, I hope we never get to that point where there's like we've always been a country that welcomes immigrants in, not have people emigrate out. But if it gets really kind of messed up, anything's possible, I suppose.
Well, I think to a certain degree, certain things are already messed up, and like, people have this idea that it's the greatest country in the world, and it's all about them. The only reason this is the greatest country in the world is because you're in it, right? And you have some sense of pride, because it's your country, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
I can guarantee you that probably the Italians, and the French, and the Greece people, the Greeks rather, the Australians, and the Moroccans, and the Nigerians, or anybody else, the Mexicans, the Brazilians, they probably think that it's the greatest country in the world too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it's theirs, and they grew up there.
It's the home team. It's a home team. But well, Fred, we're about close to time. Before we wrap up, were there any other topics that you wanted to hit that we haven't touched on?
No. Oh, this is one thing that I'd like to see. Okay, so if anybody is listening from the Andrew Yang camp, I would like to see an interview with Serena Williams and Alexis Ohanian, so they could talk tennis and tech, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that would be a really good interview on Yang Speaks.
What? Yeah. So what about those folks do you think would be the most thought provoking to?
Well, because you just have these two people, that like, you have a tech giant and a tennis giant, and you have, a black female and a white male. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't really know Alexis Ohanian's lineage, but pretty much looks like a white guy, but it's probably I don't know his nationality, so I can't speak to that. But you have two people that are very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could get, and she's just such a good athlete, and he's really thought provoking as well. I think that'd be a really, really good interview.
Right on. And Fred, for those who are watching this, who for whom maybe they've not been introduced to you before, how can they stay up to date with what's going on in Fred's world?
Okay, so you can catch me at Truckers for Yang, and so TFY are all uppercase too, or truckersforyang.com, or my personal page. I go by Fred the Felon because I coach addicts and felons, so it's Felon_Fred on Twitter. And so just be on the lookout in the future. We got a few things that we're going to be raising some money for, PPE in the future, or other things that Truckers for Yang is going to be doing in the future. And I'll try not to be so hard on the cops on Twitter. I'm sorry for those of you that are law enforcement. I just don't trust you guys. Sorry. And I have my reasons.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being honest as always, Fred. And let me show you. I'm curious who on the upcoming Nerds for Humanity roster are you most interested in hearing from? Let's see what we've got coming up. We've got Peter, my semi-crazy MAGA brother. We have Levinod, who has I connected with him because I saw that he maxed out a donation to David Kim, and I was like, wow, that's a pretty big investment. And then we have Badrun Badrun Khan running in New York's 14th district. Heidi from Veterans for Yang.
I'd be interested in her. Who's the next one?
Heidi from Veterans for Yang.
Yeah.
Trumper for Yang. Erica Simone, who's in the chat room now.
Erica Simone is actually one of my best friends. Like, we're besties. Like,
love it.
Yeah, me and her. And one of the things I like about her is, like, she can get mad and emotional and pissed off or angry or sad or happy. She can be up, or down. And then, like, I'm like the kind of person that like brings her back down to earth, a little bit. Like, hey, and like, it's always bad when I'm like the person of reason. You know what I mean? But and then it's cool because we'll talk an issue out, and then I'll watch her like deal with an issue in public that she'll respond positively because she has friends like Megan and me and other friends that she can like talk the issues through with. She's like really, really thoughtful, and she goes hard too, for Andrew.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested in seeing her. Who else would be?
We've got Elisa from Grassroots. We've got Kai Watson.
Yeah, I like him, or I like her rather. I like Russell too. I like her.
Yeah. Read My Lips, and then Eric Sanchez.
Yeah. Okay. So Read My Lips is freaking amazing. Eric Sanchez is going to be a really, really good interview. You should think about having the McCoy group on, right? There's this guy in the McCoy group I think is really smooth, Joe.
What's the McCoy group? I'm not familiar with that.
He goes by Clubber Lang on. He's just really smooth the way he, the way he explains the problems and solutions about things, right? And then there's another guy that I think is Trumper Yang is one of my buddies too.
Yeah, he's coming on.
Yeah. Hey, so one last thing. I'm going to show you. Hold on. Stop the truck.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. So, like, see this? We're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Right? This is the truck.
There it is.
Right? So this is the truck. This is Dale's house. That's the S550 right there.
Oh.
Right? Oh, SL55, sorry.
The decking and roofing business is going okay.
Oh yeah. He makes a mint doing it.
There she blows.
Yeah, there she blows. Yeah, it's kind of out in the middle, kind of out in the farm territory, Afton. So yeah, I was just gonna be here all day. Got here last night. Here's the back.
Love it, man.
This load is from Chino, California. So I drove from Chino, California. It's gonna go to Rochester.
I think this is a great investment. I love how it's keeping the brand out there. It's great.
Yeah, so I'll let you go, man. It was great talking with you. You're
It's
awesome,
always
man.
a pleasure, man. Hey, I forgot to thank you because you were on Mindful Skeptics and you guys are doing like a fantasy draft thing for like a Corona house or something. And you drafted me to your team, so I just want to thank you. I apprecited the support.
Yeah, of course I was going to draft you, bro. And and then we got they didn't put our VPs, right? So that's one of the things that they didn't want me to win because I already had Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Right. And my VP pick for Yang was LeBron. Right. So I was like, because I picked last, and I was like, well, I'm going to pick LeBron for VP because I was like, if we're stuck in the Corona house with LeBron and Dave Chappelle, I guarantee I'm going to win.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, Fred, for including the guy with the charts in the house. I very much appreciate Chappelle's. The Chappelle Show is probably my favorite show of all time, so that would have been awesome. I'm rich.
All right, I'll talk to you later, bro.
All right, goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.
Bye-bye.